एकमक्षरं हृदि निरन्तरं भासते स्वयं लिख्यते कथम्। हृदयकुहरमध्ये केवलं मात्रं यहम् इति साक्षात् आत्मरूपेण भाति। हृदि विषमनसा स्वं चिन्वता भज्यता पवनचलनरूपा आत्मनिष्ठो त्वम्। देहं मृण्मयवत् जडात्मकम् अहं बुद्धिर्न तस्यास्त्यतो नाहं तत्तथ भावशुद्धिसमये सिद्धात्मसद्भाव कुतो रधिये दृष्टात्मनिष्ठात्मना सोऽहं स्फूर्तितया अरुणाचल शिवः पूर्णो विभाति स्वयं। सोऽहं स्फूर्तितया अरुणाचल शिवः पूर्णो विभाति स्वयं। Namo Ramana. With Bhagavan's immense grace, we have been meditating on the verses of Anma bodham. We have been relying on the Tamil translation of the Sanskrit original, the original being by Adi Shankara. The translation is by Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi. We have gone through the 68 verses in some detail. Now we are going through the process of looking of the 68 verses in a summary fashion, and whether we can glean some more guidelines, some more instructions to deepen our practice of self-enquiry. We find ourselves in the segment on discrimination. This is the third segment. For convenience, the various commentators have divided the work into totally 8 segments. The first is the introduction, second is about the world, and the third starts with Viveka. The fourth segment is the practice of the Nididhyasana by doing Neti Neti, that is verses 30 to 40, but that is later. We are in the segment of verses 16 to 29. We have just crossed the verse 20, which gave us a new insight as to how the Acharya says that the Atma Shakti is running the whole creation. He compares it with the sun, which by mere radiance and by mere presence drives all the work in the world. Similarly, the Atma is merely radiant, self-luminous, in which all the upadhis and all the worlds are functioning. We also saw that the same analogy is used by Bhagavan in Who Am I, when he is asked, is all this not Ishvara's creation? And Bhagavan responds, of course, but Ishvara creates without any sankalpa. And like the sun, in whose presence all the works go on, all the karmas in all the planes of existence go on in the mere presence of the Atma Shakti. We are moving from 21 to 30 if possible, 21 to 29 if possible today. We had briefly seen that the flow is somewhat like having taken up from 16 to 20 a focus on the Atman. Now the Acharya, by giving Viveka, is going to take up the gross body, the subtle body, the buddhi, then the ahankar, and finish with the Atma Swarupa again. So let us go through verses 21 to 30 in a brief and summary way. 21 is about the Deham, Origal, Tigal Gunangal, Vinegal, Avumivai, Tuya Satchitil. So the gross body is taken, the Upadhi. We should understand Bhagavan in Ulladinarpadu says, Udalendri Undo Ulaham. He turns our experience on its head and gives us a major freedom from karma, which seems to be so oppressive. When we take that the world is a priori and we are a consciousness struck inside this body, then we feel that the world is 5 billion years old and I am 62. So I am a speck trapped in this whole oppressive creation which drives me hither and thither. But then Bhagavan turns it on its head and he is asking the consciousness, Udalandri Undo Ulaham. Is there a world without the body? And the next verse in Ulladinarpadi says, is there a world and body without the senses? And are there senses without the mind? So the world is nothing but the form of mind. They are the gross thought forms. And in the next verse, he completes the enquiry by saying that the mind, which is actually simultaneously creating the world by thinking and destroying the world by forgetting, the mind rises and sets. But for it to rise and set, there is the Atma Swarupa, which does not rise and does not set. That is verse number 5, 6, 7 of Ulladinarpadu, which is what is referred to here, that all the activities of the body and in connection, the world, we wrongly superimpose on the Atma Swarupa. So the gross body and the gross world are dealt with in verse 21. See the flow. Manamam upadihal urugar kartatvam ina maya avatrai arivinmai enum ayalal ஆன்மாவில் கற்பிப்பர் அப்பலைவில் நீர் தோன்றும் Vanmadiyil Karpipumar. Like the ripples on the water on a night when the moon is shining. When we are looking for the moon on the water surface, we feel the ripples are actually shaking up the moon. Similar is the feeling that the mind gives the agency. So from gross body, Acharya has come to the subtle body, the mind. What does the mind do? It creates the agency that I am the knower, I am the doer, and that is the root of Kartrutva. And from gross body, the Acharya has taken up that really to the Atma, which doesn't have a second, there cannot be any agency. Therefore, the feeling that I have done, oh, what will happen, whether I will get good result or whether I will get bad result, this feeling is not there in the Atma Swarupa. This feeling that we are going to enjoy at a later date or we are going to suffer at a later date for what we have done, the whole area, the whole gross area was demolished in the earlier verse, saying that if you can let go of that and hold the Atma Swarupa, in the Atma Swarupa, there is no gross body and gross world. Are there subtle body and Kartrutva in the Atma Swarupa? There is no subtle body and there is no Kartrutva, is verse number 22. So the Acharya is giving us discrimination so that in verses 30 to 40, he can take us to the practice of letting go of the Anatma. So what all we have to let go? We have to let go of the gross. We should remember that whenever the thoughts about the gross world and gross body come, we have to let that go and hold the I. When thoughts of, oh, I did that yesterday, what will happen tomorrow, when that comes, we'll have to let that go and hold the I in sadhana. That is verse number 22. See how verse number 23 takes us to the intellect. Viruppasai tunbinbu மேலுமிவை போல்வ இருப்பவாம் புத்தி இருப்பால் இருப்பில்லா தூக்கத்தில் இன்றதனால் சொந்தமவை புந்திக்கே ஓர்க்கு ஊக ஆன்மாவிற்கோ ஆன்மாவிற்காமோ. He takes up the desire, aversion, pleasure, pain. These are all for the buddhi, he says. And there is a place where the Atma is there and the buddhi is not there. In deep sleep, the Atma is there, but the buddhi is not there. All these belong to the buddhi, which vanishes in deep sleep. Therefore, they do not belong to me. What all? The desire, the aversion. So when thoughts of desire come, we have to understand they are anatma. And from when we take up 30 to 40, the nididhyasana is to hold the I by letting go of virupu, that is desire and aversion, like and dislike, and pain and pleasure. Any of those thoughts come, we have to let them go and hold the I. That is the sadhana. Because the reasoning given by the Acharya is that in deep sleep, the intellect is not there, the Atma is there, and none of this Virupasa is not there. So they all belong to the intellect only, which was present in the waking and of course in the dream. But in the deep sleep, there is only the Atma Swarupa, but not Virupu as well as the Buddhi. Sondamavai Buddhike. Therefore, the logic is that they all belong to the Buddhi and I am not the Buddhi. So, when thoughts of these come, I have to let go and hold the Atma Swarupa. That is the sadhana. Verse 24 verse and 25th verse, we are going to see what is the nature of the Atma. Having rejected the gross body, having rejected the mind, having rejected the buddhi, the Acharya is going to throw light on what is the nature of the Atma. Arukkan tanak koli, appukku tatpam, erikku tanamum, EL by. What are the nature of the fire, water, and the sun? For sun, it is brightness. For fire, it is heat. For water, it is coolness. Similarly, what is the nature of the Atma we are discussing? We have seen that it is not desire and it is not aversion. It does not have agency that I have done this, what will happen to me? That is not there. It is definitely not the gross body or the gross senses and their nature. So these are all not that. Then what is its nature? Its nature is Sat Chit Ananda and purity, the Nirmalam, Shuddham and Nityam. So what are the tests we can have for the nature of Atma? Satchitananda, Nityam. It should be ever present. And that is an argument we all see Bhagavan use. That are your problems Nityam? They are present in the waking state. Sometimes, if we are so lucky or unlucky, we have those problems in the dream also. But then they all vanish in deep sleep, where the mind is not there, says Bhagavan. In deep sleep, the mind is not there. So both the gross and subtle experiences are not there. Then what is the nature of that Atma Swarupa which is there in the waking, dream and deep sleep? It is Nityam. It is ever present. And this is the test Bhagavan uses to always reject the non-self. Whenever we go with the problem of non-self, Bhagavan will reject it using the logic, was it present in deep sleep? There was this reading this morning by Venkateshji from Letters, a very interesting reading related to Bhakti Marga perhaps, but no less relevant to Atma Vicharam. The incident that Venkateshji was reading was the Karatala Karatamarasena Supatravata, that Ganapati Muni says that Ramana used to, in the early days in Tiruvannamalai, for many years, he would just have the food in his bare hands without leaf or plate. And Bhagavan himself describes that, what those references are for. Bhagavan says in the early days of coming to Tiruvannamalai, he would go to the Agrahara, the place where people live, and he would clap his hands like that, announcing that he has arrived. And the householders who were devotees, disciples, they would be coming forward immediately and offering, but he will take only that which the hand can hold, have that, and wipe the the hands on his thighs and feel more exhilarated than an emperor in this world. These are the words, the exhilaration is the word that was used by Bhagavan, that I used to feel exhilarated more than the emperors of this world. And later, a few minutes later, one of my other satsangis, friends, he called and asked, how come Bhagavan is saying that he is exhilarated when taking bhiksha and wiping his hands? Because in that one sentence is included by Bhagavan. Bhagavan says that there would be some people who would say, hey, you are looking so sturdy, so strong. Why are you coming for bhiksha? Are you not ashamed? And Bhagavan would swallow that also, saying that, of course, the perspective of householders, there is logic in saying like that, and they have some sense in saying like that. No retort from him, only swallowing that, just like as the other food he would swallow. And he was asking me how come when he's abused also, he's feeling like an emperor. And we just try to investigate about the deep sleep, where the reference is there in this verse, where in the deep sleep, gross body, subtle body are not there. And we were trying to explore how Bhagavan feels exhilarated more than the emperor of emperors. That in deep sleep, we all seem to be switched off from the individual jiva perspective. Somebody comes and switches off the light, and then we have a blissful going into not knowing anything and completely rested. That rest which doctors, physicians, psychologists all first have come to recommend that to the patients these days. First have deep sleep, then we will see what other medicines we can give. Now that deep sleep, somebody switches on and suddenly I become Nandakumar, you become Self-Enquiry Venkatesh. He had called. So I said, somebody switches off in deep sleep and gone. Nothing to access, nothing to trouble also. And suddenly somebody switches on and you are back to Self-Enquiry Venkatesh. I am uploaded with all the data that I am Nandakumar. So it is not only food for which all living beings of which we are a part, we are Bhikshakas. The whole life is a Bhiksha. Because we have seen another example of a person who fortunately or unfortunately had brain fever for 2 days and his data could not be uploaded. He did not know who he was. And that is also a possibility. But then somebody is uploading the data and I suddenly become Nandakumar and become having all the full of agency that I have done this, I have done that. And when somebody says, hey, you have done this also, that is the time we start awakening. But then see how in deep sleep also the Atma Swarupa, not the Jiva, not the individual who feels switched off, the Atma Swarupa which we experience in self-enquiry, which is our real nature, where we transcend the mind and we are not the Jiva. What is its nature? Its nature is Satchitananda, existence, consciousness, bliss, which is all the three are one. We are going to see in the next verse why it is important that all the three are one. And two more nature, just natural to it, Nityam, ever present, and Shuddham, Nirmalam. These are the qualities of the Atma Swarupa mentioned in 24. 25 is what Akka was sharing with us in an earlier satsang, that how this whole world appearance starts from the spark being I know, the spark being I know, then I do. The I do comes after I know arises. And Akka was saying how this I know could be arising is because we are wrongly separating the Sat and Chit. Sat being the existence and Chit being consciousness. Here the I is the existence and know is the consciousness. But in I know of the intellect, there is a split of the Sat and Chit and rejoining, not the merged oneness, not the merged oneness of Satchitananda, but a split of existence and consciousness as two separate aspects and rejoining. That is what is emphasized in verse 25. In other words, verse 24 is about the nature of the Atman, and verse 25 is saying why we are not experiencing it. What is the reason that we are not experiencing the Atman? Because we have split that which should not be split. What should not be split? The Atma Swarupas, Sat and Chit, which are indivisible. We have divided and we say that I am existing here. I know that person is like this. This world is like that. Satchittena tagumanma amsamum. Buddhi virutti pugal ondrum. Otta irondodu moodattal. Yan arigindren. I know. Endru orthan தொழிற்படுவான் or. So that is the beginning of, in the earlier verse, the Atma Swarupa was described. Why we are not there? Because we have split and we feel secure in knowing certain things. We feel secure in possessing and gathering the things we know as safe for us. So then, one more reason as to how the I know comes, but here the onus is put on a new entity introduced by the Acharya as the I, the ego. So he has talked about gross body, he has talked about the mind, he has talked about the buddhi. He is now going to talk about ahankara in the next 2 or 3 verses. Endrum vikaramilada anma buddhiyum endrum arivindriyade. That means what the Acharya is saying, for the Atma Swarupa, there is no chanchala, there is no change, There is only self-luminous being. And for Buddhi, something he says which is not what we immediately see as experience. He says that Buddhi is inert. Buddhi is incapable of knowledge, he says. But we are so brimming, isn't it? We analyze, we know so many nuances in the knowledge about others, about the world. But here he says Buddhi is inert. Now intellect is in. How we can experience that? In previous verses he has said that the Buddhi is not present in the deep sleep when the light is switched off. So if something can be switched off and switched on, then consciousness is not its own, not its nature. It is something given to it. Because if it is its nature, then it should be there continuously. It is not there continuously for the Buddhi. The light is switched off in deep sleep and switched on in waking, from where we will inquire. But then the two aspects, the Atma Swarupa, Vikaram less. There is no Vikaram in the Atma Swarupa, and the Buddhi is inert by itself. There is no consciousness of its own. But somehow, from where does this relative knowledge arise? That arises from the Jiva. Ondriya Jivane Yellam Terivan Saivan Kanban Pavatal Mamohi Par. So now the Acharya is coming and joining Bhagavan in the root cause. This root cause, if we can understand, then all the other verses get merged in this root cause. If we understand that the root cause for the ignorance and the non-perception of the truth is this ego. And how does the ego rise? Bhagavan also uses this concept that Satchit Udiyade Udal Jadam. But between that, the Satchit does not arise and the body is inert. Between these two, something else arises as I. That is samsara. That is ignorance. That is maya. All the problems are that which arises between the pure consciousness of Satchit and the absolute inertness of body, he says. Here, Acharya is saying absolute inertness of Buddhi. In between, there arises the I thought. That fellow is the culprit. So if you can concentrate on attending to its non-existence by putting attention on it, by inquiring who it is, all the other koshas are automatically rejected as anatma. See the beauty of self-enquiry. By asking us to attend to the nature of I having its light from somewhere else, that it does not have light of its own, we are asked to inquire by asking from where does it arise or what is that? Who am I? Now in that very process, the whole of Atma Vichara verses in the Anma bodham are attended to in Atma Vichara. How so? Because to attend to that I, you will not be able to attend to the gross, the mind or the intellect. So it is an automatic implementation of Atma bodha, Atma Vicharam, focusing on the root cause of the ego rising. And the Acharya is joining Bhagavan, which is what Kanakamal would say, or Muruganar would say, that who is prior to whom, there is no discussion, because both are Atma Swarupa. But then here, the Acharya is alerting us to the ego. And if we can understand 26, 27 verses, 28, 29 complete this discussion. 26, 27, he has reduced all the problems to the root anatma. The root anatma, where the anatma swarupas begin, where does this evil have a beginning? And Bhagavan, when he is asked about the concept of original sin and that we are all sinners referred to in another religion, Bhagavan says to say I am the body is the beginning of sin. To identify that which is limitless to this limited frame of the body is the first sin. But then here, if we can understand 26 and 27, that this ego rising between, if we can inquire, then we are doing the Panchakosha analysis automatically. Endrum vikaram iladanma buddhiyum endrum arivinriyade. The buddhi does not have consciousness of its own. And the Atma Swarupa does not have any change. It is fullness. It is perfect. In between, this guy rises as the ego. Onriya Jivane Ellam Terivan, Kanban, Seivan. He is the one who says, I know, I see, I do. And he is everything. He says that Bhagavan says that is samsara. This Chitjada Granthi is samsara. It is itself all the problems that you can ever think of. And Bhagavan would give solutions in verses 27, 28, 29 of Ulladu Narpadu by asking us to do Atma Vicharam. But then let's go to verse 27, which is again about the Jivan. But the Acharya takes one step further. He helps us put our consciousness more as the lion than as the goat. In the Vedantic story, where the Guru comes, the Guru lion stands on top of a hill and sees that a lion cub is bleating and playing with a group of goats. And he's wondering, and he knows that a few months back, there was in his herd, there was this mother lion who was pregnant, and she was not available afterwards, and she must have delivered and died, and this child must have gone there. He could perceive that. And he removes him from that feeling that I am the body, takes him to a water body and shows, see, you are exactly like me. You look exactly like me. And the moment the cub sees that it is the lion, it roars, says the story. But here, the Acharya is taking us to the infinite consciousness, that you are not the Jiva. Tannaitan Jivanana, Tambile Pampupol, Unniye Achamurigindran. Why are we afraid? Because we feel we are this fragment. But what does the inquiry do? Inquiry takes us beyond waking, dream, and deep sleep. All the worlds of waking, all the worlds of dream, all the worlds of deep sleep, there are said to be 256 such worlds in Dvaita. They calculate because they make the fourth state as Turiya and they combine the four. 4 into 4 permutation, they get 16. 16 into 16, 256 worlds they get. Mixture of waking, dream, deep sleep, and Turiya state. All those worlds are gone. When we do self-enquiry, the Atma Swarupa is beyond, has transcended all these lokas, 256 worlds or 4 worlds, whatever. You are that lion. You are the Atma Swarupa. You are not this fragment apparently caught in a body made of senses and wondering, those billions of light years, those stars are there, and I am such a small speck. How am I going to do anything? How am I going to come out of this struggle? And the Acharya comes and says, Arey Baba, you are not goat. You are the Atma Swarupa. And that is the step that is given in verse 27. Annaitan Jivana, Tambile Pambu Pol, Unniya Achamurigindran. We get afraid. When are we? The average age of Indian is 76, 77 maybe. Now I am 62. Oh, let me calculate for 15 years what am I going to do. Within that, what will I do? And the last few years, how will I spend? You can relate with the exchange that Ganeshanana has with Shastri Mama. Shastri Mama in his last few days with the mortal coil, he has gangrene in his leg. And Ganeshanana comes from Bombay after a break, going away from Tiruvannamalai for some days. He comes back and sees that the leg is so bad. And he gets emotional about it. And Shastri Mama consoles him. Why are you? In Tamil, the kal also means quarter. A whole being one. Quarter portion. Kal also means quarter portion. The whole is one. So, kala paathe ye adara mulusapar. That means, why are you seeing the quarter and crying and getting afraid? You see that I am the whole. I am not this body. I am the Atma Swarupa. then you won't cry like this. When you experience you are the Atma Swarupa, you know Shastri Mama is also the Atma Swarupa. Everyone in reality is the Atma Swarupa. The fear vanishes. Tambile Pamupo, like seeing the snake in the rope. Tannaitan Jivanalan. I am not that fragment. I am the self-luminous Atma Swarupa. I have no discontentment. I am full and brimming with unconditional love. I am full of the light of consciousness, which doesn't need any support. It is Niralamga. When that realization comes, where is fear? The fear comes because we are gripping on to something which is hardly a support, which is going to be mixed in Kaveri and sent off in a few days. And the subtle body, which is made up of thoughts, which they say we carry with the breath and go to various other worlds, that is hardly any support that we need. We are the consciousness. We don't need the support of the gross or of the subtle. That is verse number 27. It shifts our perspective from somebody who is crying all day, oh, what will happen? Will that money come, not come? Will people respect me? What will be the response that I will get to this or that? All that is gone in the realization that there is only the Atma Swarupa. Now 28 and 29 complete the discrimination by talking about who gives the light and how to see the light finally. That 28 is that the Upadhis don't lighten up the Atma. It is the Atma Shakti which is enlightening the Upadhis. That is verse 28. And 29 is to see the Atma Shakti, you need no light, any other light. ஒரு பொருளாம் ஆன்மா ஒளிர்விக்கும் மதிமுன் கருவிகளை தீபம் கடாதி ஒருவ ஒளியில் அவற்றால் ஒருபோதும் ஆன்மா ஒளிர்க்கப்படாதென்று உணர். That you should understand that you are not, you are even as it is, you know you exist. But the body or the world doesn't know it exists. The thought which you are following so desperately as a goal, that doesn't know it exists. But you know the I thought is different from the other thought, says Bhagavan. How so? Because the I thought is aware of its existence. The other thoughts, their existence has to be lit up by the I thought. We used to share this, that if after walking a long distance, someone is tired and goes to sleep in the middle of the day underneath the tree, the sun is completely useless. It cannot light up anything if the consciousness is not lit up. If the consciousness goes to sleep, then the sun, in that level of consciousness, the sun does not exist. It is non-existent in that level of consciousness. The mind is non-existent in the Atma Swarupa. Therefore, the mind and the gross world, the gross are all lit up by the Atma Swarupa. The Atma Swarupa can never be lit up by thoughts. So don't ask for self-knowledge from anyone. They cannot give you. Don't seek self-knowledge in a better healthy body. No. Don't seek for self-knowledge in any thought, however great, however abstract it may be told by the greatest being. Doesn't matter. You have to see the light of the self by yourself. That is what is going to be said in the last verse of this discrimination verses. விளக்கின் உருவை விளக்கிட வேறு விளக்கை விரும்பா விதம் போல். To know the light of the lamp, you don't need another light. To see the lamp, you don't need another light. Similarly, to see the Atma Swarupa, the Atma Swarupa's light itself is enough. It is self-luminous. That means what? When somebody asks, how will I know? Will I know that I am self-realized? The answer to that is, you are that light of knowledge. There is no way you can miss it. There is this funny incident with Ramanath Brahmachari. Of course, in Bhakti Marga, those funny incidents are very well allowed. It also happens with Major Chadwick. Ramanath Brahmachari first. Ramanath Brahmachari great sadhaka. And he was known as Sarvadikari of Palakattu. Palakattu was a place where Kunjusami says all these crazy sadhakas would live, feeling that they are in some aranya, some forest, and they are practicing self-enquiry taught by Bhagavan and would pursue their enquiry with all seriousness. So they wouldn't bother about their food or light or anything. And Ramnath Brahmachari would go into those rooms, see that everything is provided. Said that he will go to the town and get all the things and serve them. And he gets this Purana. He gets the Akandakara Vritti. He gets the rope experience, that I am the rope. I am self-luminous. I am not the Jiva. But then Bhagavan is around. Bhagavan with whom he has related for so many years. He is around. So he goes and asks Bhagavan, this flash, this Purana is coming. Is this realization? Bhagavan says, yes, yes, that is real. Go. He is not able to believe. How come that such a fellow I have been? Could this be? Am I eligible for such a? No, Bhagavan, I am asking, is this realization? Amanda, he gives a small rap with his knuckle. We call it as kottu. And then he goes and shows that place to everybody. See, this is where Bhagavan gave certificate for my self-realization, for the real self rising and shining. When the ego dies, Bhagavan says, when the ego dies, the self will rise and shine. Soham spurti taya arunachala shivaha purno vibhati swayam. What happens? Koham bhava yutah kuto varadhiya. If you take your dhi and do not pursue anything other than the enquiry, who am I? Drishtatma nishtatmanam. Your attention is paid only to the I. Then Soham spurti taya arunachala shivaha. On burning the vasanas and the ego, there is no other way possible that the Arunachala Shiva, who is the existence consciousness, who is the self of all, rises and shines as I, Akanda. The difference between the ego and the Atma Swarupa is that the ego has broken up thoughts. The Atma Swarupa is Akanda. There is the fullness, there is that complete healing of unconditional love. But then one doesn't remain as the unconditional love. The light of consciousness takes that love and makes it full of peace. Now that peace is self-luminous. It doesn't need another light. It doesn't need the confirmation from another. Therefore, when somebody asks, how will I know? There is no answer but to say, continue the enquiry. The enquiry itself has been got because of the presence of the self, because of the presence of the Atma Shakti. Only you have got the interest in self-enquiry. Do it. The Atma Shakti is present as the Guru. It will guide you. Is there a necessity to show the way inside your own house? Bhagavan says, you are the Atma Shakti, you are the lion. You are falsely considering yourself to be the sheep. So merely do this task of self-knowledge. The only difference between Jiva and the real Atma Swarupa is that the Jiva does not have full knowledge of itself. It has partial self-knowledge, and make it complete self-knowledge. Then there is nothing more required there. You are the Purna Vastu, you are Satchitananda, you are Nityam, and you are Nirmalam. Is the discriminatory verses ending. Hopefully we will take up the Nididhyasana verses, the Neti Neti Adi verses 30 to 40 in our next summary session. Let us sit in the practice of Atma Vicharam for the next 14-15 minutes, and then we can listen to Akka going through these verses. Ujulji, you can set the time for us. There is a new person in the group. So what we do is, after the discussion, we sit in practice of Atma Ucharam. So when thoughts arise, we try not to pursue, but ask for whom is this thought. The answer will be, this thought is for me. Then the who am I question, it stills the I. So when the I moves, if at all it moves again, and tries to raise another thought, again it is stilled by the quest who am I. Let us sit in Atma Ucharam till 8 o'clock.
Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya.
Namo Ramana. Namo Ramana ka.
Namo Ramana. Illustrations to Ramana shining as the self in all beings. By the immense grace of the self manifest as Ramana, we in this satsanga are focusing on the verses of Anma bodham, which have been translated into Tamil by Bhagavan Ramana. And based on these Tamil verses, Nandakumar ji is taking us on this journey. We have completed, as he said, the in detail meditation on these verses, and now he is taking us back to a bird's eye view to give us the gist and also to give us the highlight of the Anma bodham. When we look at it in this way, quickly also, we are able to see how the focus is continuously on being self-aware. And in these verses which we meditated on today with Nandakumar ji, we were told why we are not the body, not the mind, not the buddhi, and what is the nature of the self itself. All these aspects were dwelt upon today. And if we look at what happens when we believe we are the body, when the body identification is strong, then the sense of doership is strong. We want to act, we want to do this, we want to do that, we are worried about our actions, we are worried about the outcomes of the actions. However, when we identify, as Nandakumar ji often says, with the subtle aspect of ourselves, which is the mind, subtler than the body, then we begin to understand, oh, the actions are all, maybe the actions are guided by the mind. One part is that, and we may not give so much importance to the sense experiences, to the gross world, but at that point of time, in our practice, the knowing becomes very important. We become the knower. Instead of being the doer, we become the knower of all the experiences. And actually, in this, the buddhi is seen as separate. Bhagavan makes the manas and the buddhi into one unit. Bhagavan Ramana does not separate the manas, buddhi, chitta, ahankara as four units, but he says they are all aspects of the same entity called the I thought. He calls it all the mind. He says manas itself is only the I thought. So what happens? We may be wanting to do something, or we may be wanting to know something. We may say that I am the knower of all my thoughts. I know that my thoughts arise because of the light of awareness which I put onto an object. That object becomes a thought in my mind. So I become the power of thinking. I become the thinker. When I am the mind, I become the thinker. From being the doer, I become the thinker. And further, if I go to the essence of the intellect, which says this is right, this is wrong, and then go even beyond this discrimination and say, okay, I will no longer, why should I discriminate by saying this is right, this is wrong? Every experience for me is only a thought. Red is a thought, green is a thought, anger is a thought, sorrow is a thought, pleasure is also a thought, attaining is a thought, not attaining is a thought. Everything is only a thought. So why do I give weightage to one thought, no weightage to another thought, say this is a good thought, this is a bad thought? I will not do any such thing. I will not identify with my buddhi. Then what happens? I remain as the witness to all my thoughts. So there is the, one may say, there is a subtle knower over there, or a subtle enjoyer, one may say also. One just enjoys watching all the thoughts. One is at peace. One says, okay, I am the Sakshi, I am watching all the thoughts. But why should I be enjoying watching the thoughts? Why should I be watching the thoughts? Why should I identify with the watcher of the thoughts or the knower of the thoughts? Or even subtler, then when one does not even identify with the knowing of the thoughts, when one is ready to give up that sense of duality, asking, see, when I have nothing to do with my thoughts, why should I be busy watching my thoughts all the time? What am I going to gain from doing that? When I am not the thinker, why should I be worried about what happens to the thoughts, that their eyes, they are good, they are bad, even if they're all the same? What does it matter? So, when one drops the identity of the watcher, also going further within, saying, who is this who is watching? Who is this who is aware of watching? Who is this who is aware of being a witness? Then what happens is, one will get to the pure aham spurana, which is in itself, as Nandakumar sweetly said, which is full of unconditional love, which is just the pure I, and it is reveling in itself. The I reveling in itself is the aham spurana. It does not need any object other than itself. It revels in itself. But then, why that, even that reveling in oneself? When one drops that also through just not at that time questioning the aham spurana, but not allowing it to move back to any identification. When one remains with that pure I, says Bhagavan, then that merges back into the self, which is Sat Chit Ananda, which is Nitya. Because the Aham Spurana, so far as I understand, is the manifestation of the self, so long as there is the body in relation to the body, for the sake of the functioning in relation to the body, is the Aham Spurana, is the Shakti. But one does not have to even have any functioning at all. The self remains in all its purity. Absolute purity means unmixed. Nandakumar ji said the quality is that it is pure. What is purity? What is pure milk? Pure milk is when there is nothing else mixed with it. That is pure milk. What is pure water? When there is nothing else other than water in it, it is pure water. So the purity of the self is because it is unmixed with anything whatsoever. It is unmixed with anything whatsoever because there is nothing apart from it for it to be mixed with anything. It cannot be mixed with anything. However, we experience it as being mixed with various things. We experience the consciousness as being mixed with the body, as being mixed with the breath, as being mixed with thoughts, as being mixed with the sense of witnessing. We experience the consciousness as being mixed up with all this, separated from existence, and mixed up with all experiences. So, when that is cut away by questioning each and every one, saying, for whom is this thought of the body? For whom is this thought that I am the thinker? For whom is this thought that I am the knower? For whom is this thought that I am experiencing the self? See what happens even during in sadhana, when there is intermittent experience of the self, one will come out of that experience back into the body identification, and then one may think, oh, I was experiencing the self, now I am again identified with the mind, I am again identified with the body. Who is that I? Who is to be identified with the body and who was experiencing the self? Is the I the experiencer of the self? No, there is no such I as separate to be the experiencer of the self also. Only the self is. So that is what Bhagavan is telling us over here. Even if there is a slightest trace of duality, even if there is a slightest trace of seeking anything other than the self, one must get back using self-enquiry, which is the most loving and powerful weapon. Out of great love, Bhagavan has given us this most powerful weapon because it can keep us alert to even the slightest trace of identity. Everything, whenever there is any need to move away from that Satchitanandam, in quest of any Ananda that appears to be apart from it, one becomes alert through the power of self-inquiry and gets back to the source. It is like the sun's example was given in the previous last verse which we dwelt upon, which was the 20th verse which Nandakumarji dwelt upon for us, where if one is like the sun, is one concerned, the activities of the world may go on, may not go on, it is not the concern of the sun. The activities of the body may go on, may not go on. It is not for us to worry, Bhagavan says, if we remain in the state in which we are to remain, in our own true natural state, everything will happen automatically. But how will it matter to us that it is happening automatically or not? It will happen. Even now, things are not happening because of us. Because only that Shakti, the Atma Shakti alone, can make anything happen, and in fact nothing happens. So the if at all happenings are of significance to us, they are all happening because of the Atma Shakti, not because of us. So why should we worry about anything? We are free to enjoy the self and the self alone, fully basking in that peace at all times. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri
Namo Ramana.
Ramana.
Namo Ramana to all.
Namo Ramana.